Hello and welcome to today's webinar hosted by the Outdoor Recreation Roundtable, showcasing the release of economic impact data on the outdoor recreation economy from 2022, prepared by the U.S. Department of Commerce's Bureau of Economic Analysis. For any media on the call, we'll be putting a media number in the Zoom chat for a media call at the conclusion of this event. We'll also have a recording of this call on our website following this conversation. My name is Chris Perkins. I'm the Vice President of Programs for ORR, the leading coalition of associations representing the full spectrum of outdoor recreation activities, over 110,000 businesses across the United States. This is an exciting day for us because this new data reinforces the importance of outdoor recreation to the U.S. economy and jobs, and helps us make the case for outdoor recreation priorities, including advocating for new investments in outdoor recreation infrastructure, favorable conditions for businesses to thrive, programs to ensure that all Americans, especially along the lines of race, income, and ability level, have access to the outdoors, and that we support communities of all sizes who provide outdoor recreation access. With a transformational recreation package currently under consideration in Congress, today's release could not be better timed. Without further ado, I'm pleased to share the top-line numbers from this year's release, looking back at 2022. For the first time, the outdoor industry has surpassed $1 trillion in gross output. This accounts for 2.2% of US GDP, 5 million jobs, or 3.2% of US employment. Going deeper into the data, we can see that the outdoor rec economy grew 4.8% from 2021 to 2022, compared to 1.9% for the US economy as a whole. We can also see that outdoor recreation jobs grew 7.4%, compared to 3.9% for the US economy. We can now look at activities within the outdoor recreation satellite account and compare both by size and by growth. So from 1 to 5, the top economic impact activities are RVing, boating and fishing, motorcycling and ATVing, hunting, shooting, and trapping, snow activities. And by growth from 2021 to 2022, recreational flying, snow activities, climbing, hiking, and tent camping, motorcycling, ATVing, RVing. We can also unpack the outdoor recreation satellite account at the state level. Here you can see 1 through 10 rankings of US states by both size and by growth from 2021 to 2022. Impressive is a 44% growth rate in Hawaii, nearly 30% in Alaska, nearly 30% in District of Columbia, 26% in Wyoming, 21% in Florida, and several others. Contribution to state GDP. This is an updated map for 2022. Darker colors represent a greater proportion of GDP contributed to by outdoor recreation. And finally, comparing outdoor recreation's contribution to US GDP to other industries within the United States. But don't just take it from me. I'm pleased to have several experts on today's call to provide more context and color to today's release. I'm pleased to pass it over first to Callie Hoyt, Vice President for Government Relations at the National Marine Manufacturers Association. Callie, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you, Chris, and thank you to the Outdoor Recreation Roundtable for hosting today's webinar. My name is Callie Hoyt. I am the Vice President of Government Relations with the National Marine Manufacturers Association. We represent the U.S. recreational boating industry. 2020 brought unprecedented challenges, but it also revealed a profound appreciation for outdoor activities as we saw a surge in Americans' desire to be outdoors and on the water. As a result, the boating industry witnessed record sales in 2021, And we see this momentum continued in 2022 through the newest BEA data, showing boating and fishing remain a top contributing segment within the outdoor economy, with 60.1 billion in nominal gross output and a 5% increase from 2019 data in real gross output. Clearly, people want to get outside, they want to connect with nature and experience the joy of boating, further increasing the economic gravity of our sector in communities across the country. However, from inflation to threats to boating access, our industry is facing significant headwinds. It's now more crucial than ever to protect Americans' access to recreational activities. Recreational boating is not just a popular pastime, it's a vital contributor to our economy. By protecting Americans' access to oceans, lakes, and inland waterways, we're supporting an industry that's driving economic growth. NMMA data shows that recreational boating supports more than 800,000 jobs across the country. With 95% of boats that are sold in the US made in the US, boating is a uniquely American-made industry that's creating job opportunities, stimulating local economies, and attracting tourists from all over the country. As an industry, we recognize the challenges and opportunities that lie ahead. NMMA, along with our partners, will continue to work diligently to protect Americans' access to the oceans, lakes, and inland waterways. By safeguarding our access to recreational activities, we're investing in the future of our communities, our economy, and the environment. Thank you again to ORR for the opportunity to speak today.
Thank you, Callie, for your remarks and for your leadership on behalf of the marine industry. I'm pleased now to pass it to Glenn Hughes, President of the American Sport Fishing Association. Glenn, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks, Chris. And also thanks to the BEA for the outstanding report. As Chris mentioned, I'm Glenn Hughes, President of the American Sport Fishing Association, and we're a trade organization representing the interests of the sport fishing industry and 54 million recreational anglers across the United States. As Callie just mentioned, it's important to show the value of outdoor recreation and the millions of Americans that take advantage of all the great lands and waters that our nation has to offer. It's like nowhere else on earth. Following Callie on boats, we like to say fishing and boating go together like peanut butter and jelly, and the outdoors is the bread that surrounds them. This report proves what we've been saying all along, that fishing is big business, and it's so important that our government recognizes and ensures that they provide quality resources and access to our public lands. As I mentioned, the number of anglers has grown to 54 million participants in this past year. And the increases of anglers really comes from getting more women, more children, and more multicultural families outside and on the water participating in America's favorite pastime. But that money doesn't just stop with anglers buying fishing equipment. For more than 70 years, fishing tackle manufacturers and anglers have been supporting conservation and access with federal excise taxes on every piece of fishing equipment that they buy. So that means every fishing rod and reel, every lure, every line, and every tackle box, fishing net, and more combines with the motorboat fuel tax. More than $700 million is getting funneled and back to the state each year to support conservation, fish hatcheries, and access to public lands. And what's more, many anglers like me like to fish in other states around the country. That means more fishing licenses purchased, the hiring of local guides and captains, staying in hotels and lodges, eating restaurants, renting cars, and the list goes on. So besides the economic value, fishing is good for the soul. It helps bring families and friends together. And it's also always good to be able to get together and relax and enjoy the great outdoors. So that's why it's so important to recognize the value of fishing and the outdoor recreation and the benefits it brings to conservation, as well as the local communities. So that's it from me. Thanks, Chris.
Thank you very much, Glenn. And you've inspired me to go fishing as soon as I can. Next, we have Yvonne Liao, CEO of Be Wilder. Yvonne, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. I am the CEO of Bewilder, and we are an outdoor education company based in Los Angeles. Our mission is simple. We exist to inspire more urban families to spend more time outside. And our approach is fairly unique. What we do is design family events, in addition to outdoor education programs and after-school programs, but mainly for audiences living in dense urban environments. And so what we'll often do is actually take over shopping centers or even put campgrounds on concrete. And we do that by blending art, games, and storytelling into unique educational experiences. Our strong suit is being able to really introduce the awe and the wonder of the outdoors in places that might look like a schoolyard or even a classroom, because that's how critical we believe it is for all families, whether or not they're living in a city or a rural environment, to be able to access what we think are the most important aspects of being outside. And so what we've learned from on the ground work and observing a lot of the hundreds of thousands of families we've been able to interact with and reach is that a lot of parents are trying really hard to reduce the amount of screen time that their kids are experiencing on a day-to-day basis. And just to kind of put it in perspective, about 13 hours of media is consumed by adults every day, and 7.5 hours of screen time is consumed by kids. 85% of parents actually want their kids to spend time outside, but the resources that they have and the information that they have access to, or even the time off, may provide barriers to entry. But we know that there's a huge desire, and these statistics continue to reinforce that growth year over year that's being reflected in the data that's being shared today. So we're very optimistic that as a nation, as an industry, we are on the right path to continuing to further more love for the outdoors. But a lot of work still needs to be done, especially in these urban environments where they may not always have the easiest access to the outdoors. So really want to conclude by saying thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to speak on behalf of families, particularly those living in cities like Los Angeles.
And thank you so much, Yvonne. As I've shared with you personally, I can't wait for my kids to be old enough to do your programs. I'm pleased to introduce Jason Reno, Vice President of Government Affairs at the RV Industry Association, to speak next. Jason, thanks for being here.
Thanks, Chris. Appreciate you putting this together and the leadership that ORR provides for all of our organizations. Hi, everybody. I'm Jason Reno, the VP of Government Affairs for the RV Industry Association. We represent more than 98% of the RV manufacturers and suppliers, excuse me, more than 500 members. This is really exciting to see this data affirm the valuable role of RVing in the U.S. economy. In fact, the biggest contributor in the outdoor recreation space. I might say that a few more times over the next few weeks here. But what 2022's numbers show is the impact of the 1.5 million RVs built in the last few years that are being used for outdoor recreation. People have turned to RVs and RVing as a way to experience the great outdoors and recreate in all the ways that my colleagues have talked about and will talk about. And our research shows that 20 million people are planning to go RVing this holiday season, and 70 million people are planning to go RVing in 2024. So the use will continue. And what we're also seeing is that new RV buyers are younger and more diverse, which means they will continue to be recreating and using our public lands and campgrounds for decades to come. And they're looking for a different experience. They're looking for electric hookups, Wi-Fi, and other modernized infrastructure and increased access. That's why the recreation package that ORR supports and Chris referenced earlier is so important for all of us. So thanks very much for having us, and I'll turn it back to you, Chris.
Thank you, Jason, and thank you for your leadership on behalf of the RV segment. Next, I'm pleased to introduce Kent Ebersole, President of the Outdoor Industry Association, to talk a bit about what OIA makes possible for the recreation economy. Kent, thanks for being here.
Thank you, Chris, and ORR, and thank you, BEA. The Outdoor Industry Association is a passionate group of business leaders, climate experts, policymakers, and outdoor enthusiasts. We're committed to sustainable economic growth, climate positivity, and protecting and growing access to the benefits of the outdoors for everyone. Today's data proves that the outdoor industry is an economic force, in part because so many Americans participate in activities like hiking, camping, skiing, biking, and climbing, the activities that we focus on. In fact, over 55% of all Americans enjoy outdoor activities. We're especially proud that the gross output from core activities OIA represents, climbing, hiking, tent camping, grew 40% from 2019 to 2022. One of the most important notes is that we celebrate that number, and it's a reflection of the rapidly growing and increasingly diverse participant base. This data also gives our outdoor businesses a seat at the table to leverage the most comprehensive package of outdoor recreation bills in a generation, like the American Outdoor Recreation Act. And it enhances the need to provide much needed tariff relief for technology-driven, innovative, and sustainable products that enhance the outdoor experience. Thank you all, and keep outdoors.
Thank you, Kent, and thank you for your leadership on behalf of so many businesses and organizations in the outdoor industry. Finally, I'm pleased to introduce Scott Schlegel, Senior Vice President of Government Relations, Motorcycle Industry Council, Recreational Off-Highway Vehicle Association, and Specialty Vehicle Institute of America. Scott, glad to have you.
Great. Well, thanks, Chris. These are really fantastic numbers for us to see today. We're thrilled to see that motorcycling, ATVing, and side-by-sides. You need to include those in there. I try to get BEA to put that in each year in the language, but side-by-sides or utility vehicles are a critical component as well of our recreation mix in the power sports industry, as we call ourselves. But again, great to see that we are the number 3 largest activity within the BEA study. Our retail footprint is all across the country. Everybody sees a power sports retailer in their local communities out there. And so we're proud to have them contributing jobs and revenues to the economy every single day across the nation. Our manufacturing, we've got significant manufacturing footprint in states like Wisconsin, Minnesota, Georgia, California, Texas, Nebraska, in the Carolinas, just to name a few, as well as many suppliers across the rest of the country. And so we're pleased that they all are contributing to these fantastic numbers that we're seeing today. With this great growth that we've seen, it's really critical that we kind of harness that growth and that we take advantage of that by welcoming in those new and returning riders who are coming back to our sport or are new to our sports. It's also really important that we stress responsible riding, responsible activity while they're out there on our public lands and enjoying the beauty that we have across the country. And it's also critical that we protect and grow the access to those public lands, right? I mean, these are the lands that we all have paid for on our taxes, and we all want to have access to. And so continuing that access and growing that access is critical. And a critical part of that too is the Recreational Trails Program, which funds so many of the recreational trails across the nation, both in the motorized, non-motorized, and in the mixed use in all 3 of those categories. So we would love to see an increase in the RTP in the coming year or two to continue to enhance and maintain the trails for the folks who are out there enjoying our great country. And just to give you a quick snapshot of our industry in this past quarter and the Q3 sales, we saw new motorcycles and scooters increase by 4.4% through the third quarter of 2023 compared to 2022. And we also saw dual sport motorcycles up 6.6%, significant growth that we've seen in the dual sport motorcycle categories. And so all of this is helping to feed into the great numbers that we see today. And lastly, just want to thank ORR for all the great work that you guys are doing to help amplify this and to drive so many of these policies that will both protect and increase access to recreation across the country. So thanks.
And thank you, Scott, for all you do for so many power sports users across the United States. Due to a technical issue, BEA staff was late to join the call, but I believe Stosh Resnick from BEA is now here behind the scenes. Stosh, I'd like to provide you the opportunity to add any color or context to this year's report from the perspective of BEA, and also to say thank you on behalf of the entire outdoor recreation industry for all the hard work that you and your team put in throughout the year to make this report possible. Stosh, would you like to add anything to this report? And if you're talking, you're currently on mute, Stosh. Hearing nothing from Stosh, I will reiterate my thanks to him and his team and reiterate our top line figures from today's release. $1.1 trillion in gross output, accounting for 2.2% of US GDP, 5 million jobs, and 3.2% of US employment. What are we going to do with these figures? Well, we will use this data to advocate for various important outdoor recreation priorities, including the transformational recreation package currently under consideration in Congress, mentioned by a couple speakers today. This package passed the Senate Energy and Natural Resources Committee via unanimous consent, and we look forward to stewarding its consideration by the House Natural Resources Committee in the weeks to come. I want to also thank all of today's speakers for adding great background on why today's release is so valuable for the outdoor recreation industry, the US economy, and the American people. And also thank all of you on the call for taking time on a Friday before Thanksgiving to learn more about these numbers. Again, we do have a media call starting in a few minutes. We hope you can join. And for the rest of you, thank you so much for being here.